The following program is a podcast1.com production.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
For we need a little Christmas right this very minute. Candles in the windows, carols at the spinet. Yes, we need a little Christmas right this very minute.
The investigation into Donald Trump's campaign has been crooked from the jump. But the scary part is we may now have proof the investigation was weaponized to destroy his presidency for partisan political purposes and to disenfranchise millions of American voters. Now, if that's true, we have a coup on our hands in America.
Fox News, let me say this, they are fomenting a constitutional crisis by suggesting to people watching Fox News in middle America that someone is attempting a coup. Well, Joe. A coup against our government.
Joe Scarborough is giving us kind of an early Christmas gift today. That's very nice. Thanks, Joe. Sorry, Morning Mika. Morning Mika now. You know, it's really fun to watch. I tuned into a couple of the opposed Trump networks this morning just to have some fun. And we're seeing the economy, of course, soar. We're seeing the best retail season we've had in years being recorded. We see this tax bill is obviously going to get signed into law before the end of the year, for Christmas. And we see ISIS smashed in Syria and beyond. And it's fun to tune in to the Oppo Trump networks because they are loath to talk about anything that is good that is happening in America. Because if they do speak about anything that is good and positive and optimistic that's happening in our country, lo and behold, you have to give Donald Trump just probably a little bit of credit. You can't totally ignore the fact that he's president of the United States. But they're going to like a Jesse Waters weekend show to reach to there will be violence in the streets. This coming from a network that is so hesitant to criticize the truly violent groups out there, such as Black Lives Matter and these Antifa people who have destroyed millions of dollars worth of property and worked to shut down free speech across the United States. How many breathless segments did Morning Joe do about the Dartmouth professor who wrote the book about Antifa? Encouraging violence. Did they happen to see what happened at Berkeley? Encouraging violence? Did they see what happened in the wake of Freddie Gray and what happened during the Michael Brown fiasco in St. Louis and beyond, and all of the torchings of block after block on spurious grounds, having fomented themselves, by the way, fomented these false narratives day after day after day to indicate that most of the cops there are racist, most of the law enforcement has a tin ear when it comes to racial issues, and essentially in much of their reporting, empathizing with those who were turning over police cars, looting, burning, and terrorizing entire communities and destroying small businesses and communities. And now they're coming out and saying, oh, the Republicans are encouraging. Oh, please. What is being discussed is very important. Namely, how absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it used to be, the Democrats used to be the party that was distrustful of big law enforcement, heavy-handed law enforcement, forcing people into plea deals. They're all for criminal justice reform, right? They're all very critical of law enforcement. But then when the Republicans come forward and say, well, the FBI, we got some problems here. We got not the rank and file people. The rank and file people I happen to just know a lot of FBI men and women, and I've gotten to know them over the years in a variety of contexts. I mean, and the ones I know are just awesome people, and they're good friends. So it's fun to talk to them about this controversy because they're like, look, we're conservative. We can't even put up a yard sign during political election seasons. And then former national spokesman of the FBI said that on the Ingraham angle on Friday night, which I actually did not know until a couple of weeks ago. And he reiterated it on Friday and said, not only you can't send these types of texts around, you can't put up a lawn sign. You are not supposed to have publicly expressed views of, political, support one way or another. You are calling balls and strikes on the rule of law, period. That's what you do. You're an agent of the FBI, and you are not a political pundit. And so the Democrats and their sympathizers have been trashing good law enforcement for years, unfairly, I might add, and urging these consent decrees on law enforcement in Oakland and Chicago and in St. Louis and all over the United States, Cleveland, these consent decrees where they monitor the police and they essentially force the police to go into this entire diversity mentality, all their, racial healing training and all the stuff they have to do. And now they come forward and they criticize people who say, maybe it's not a good idea to have Obama and Clinton loyalists investigating Donald Trump. Maybe that looks like, to a lot of people just on the outside, as the fix was in from the beginning. If you're going to assemble a team that is infected with Obama and Clinton loyalists, not just people who voted for them, but people who worked for them and people who represented the Clinton Foundation, like Jeannie Rhee, and people who represented Ben Rhodes, and people like Andrew Weissman. All of these individuals taint the ultimate product of the investigation. Now, truth be told, Peter Strzok, who was removed from his duties in July, he actually was the lead interviewer of Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor for Trump, who was relieved of his position last February. Now, he came away from that interview with Flynn thinking Flynn was not lying. Very interesting. So he may have actually done a pretty good job on that interview. I don't know. See, I actually have a sense, and it's my old criminal defense posture that I have right here, that Mike Flynn did not lie to the FBI in that interview. First of all, he had no obligation to be interviewed by the FBI. For the life of me, I don't understand why he even agreed to an interview. But he did. And I think he did because he thought he had nothing to hide. But you know what he didn't want? He didn't want to spend the rest of his days on Earth defending himself, living in bankruptcy, and seeing his family's name dragged through the mud. That's what a lot of people do in this situation. They plead because they have unlimited resources, they have unlimited staff, and they will indict you for something, and probably something more severe and serious, than you're pleading to. But the idea that criticizing the FBI is now verboten. Well, what have they been doing in law enforcement all across the country? And by the way, I'll tell you how the Democrats have criticized the FBI over the years tonight on the Ingraham angle. And when people say coup, it's because it looks like in these text messages that we discovered between Strzok and the girlfriend, Lisa Page, also working in the FBI, also high up in the FBI, that they were talking about having an insurance policy so Trump would never get elected. Now, I found that beyond creepy. Two high-ranking FBI investigators who were involved in everything from the Hillary email investigation to, it looks like, the obviously the Russia investigation, but perhaps the FISA warrant filing, Cheryl Mills interview, the Hillary interview, that they were talking in Andrew McCabe's office, the deputy FBI director, who also needs to be relieved from his duties. I said that on Friday, about whether Trump would get elected or not, and now we needed an insurance policy. Now, what's that mean? If that doesn't sound like an internal plot to deny Trump the presidency because you make it look so bad for him, whether it's a FISA warrant or you're listening in on conversations during before the election, you're using a fake dossier that Bruce Orr, also working for the FBI, his wife works for Fusion GPS, Nellie Orr. They end up paying for this thing. They meet with Chris Steele. They meet with these individuals, and they use that to go to the FISA court and say, let's monitor. Way beyond Carter Page. Let's keep it going. So that's why I imagine Jesse Waters said that. But I just love the MSNBC. Well, there's going to be violence in the streets. Well, when's the last time they actually criticized violence in the streets? Did they really criticize Madonna saying we're going to blow up the White House? They criticize the vicious rhetoric coming from the Women's March. Well, how about other people saying that Donald Trump deserves to be, quote, removed from office? What does that mean? What does that mean? I mean, I don't ever hear them criticizing that. That sounds like a coup. Removing the president from office by any means necessary. You're listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction, 855-40-LAURA. We have a lot to get to, and we're going to have a phenomenal show tonight. You're not going to want to miss it. It turns out that Lisa Bloom, Gloria Allred's daughter, was paying people to testify that they had been harassed by Donald Trump, offering as much, by the way, as $750,000 from apparently donors who are willing to pony up. And one woman actually got her mortgage paid off in Queens, $30,000. Another got cold feet at the end. We're going to be examining the campaign finance ramifications of this scheme and whether if two or more people are conspiring together with lots of money changing hands, whether they had an obligation to register as a political action committee, and whether the super PACs that may have been funding this effort, even if in some cases it wasn't successful, funding this effort also violated campaign finance law because of, what do you think, disclosure issues. And I have a question. Did any of these women, the women who got the money for appearance fees, was this tax-free? They declare that on their taxes? How'd they declare that income? So there's tax implication, obviously, ethical implications, and campaign finance implications. Potential mail fraud, wire fraud. Well, definitely worth an investigation. But did they discuss this at all on Morning Joe today? Or I was watching CNN for a time. I didn't hear anything. As the GOP is poised to pass tax reform this week. 855-40-LAURA. We have a lot more to get to on your Healthy Radio Addiction. And the Never Trumpers are having a miserable time at the end of this year because, of course, they're just, you know what I think they're hoping for now is that the economy crashes. That's the only thing I think they can hope for Mueller to pull a rabbit out of his hat or for the economy to crash. Other than that, I'm not, they're going to do their get out the vote effort for sure. But in the end, Donald Trump has to barnstorm the country, keep people happy, leave the politics of anger behind, and continue to build the momentum for this agenda, coast to coast, not just in places that like you, but in places, in localities, towns, cities, where they're very critical, even hostile to Donald Trump. He needs to start doing that in the new year. No doubt about it. Got to get those numbers up. We'll take a break. Don't go away.
You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
Congress must force the FBI and the individuals involved to come clean on what counter-espionage agents meant by insurance policy to protect the country from Donald Trump's presidency.
President Trump, of course, is up early watching TV, making sure his TV network follows orders.
Thanks to my wonderful sponsors and your support, I'm glad to say that we can provide this podcast at no cost to you at all. As a loyal listener of my program, please consider testing our sponsors because they're the ones who actually cover the cost to produce this daily show. So if you're a dog lover like I am, how about giving your dog, your best friend, a fresh, healthy, and nutritious diet? When dogs eat well, they live longer and happier lives. I'm here to tell you about NomNomNow.com, which cooks the world's best dog food. It's made fresh in the USA and delivered right to your door every week. Nom Nom Now's customized recipes cook fresh in our kitchen, delivering healthy nutrition you can actually see. Switch to Nom Nom Now and your dog will have more energy, a shinier, softer coat, and a longer, better life. Nom Nom Now really is the best food for your best friend. And right now you can save 50% on your first 2 orders of fresh, healthy dog food when you use my code Laura at NomNomNow.com. That's code Laura and save 50% on your first 2 orders. NomNom now.com and code word LAURA.
You might remember me as the one who let you down, but never made another sound of fear.
1995 when McVeigh, a militia member, going and blowing up a federal building and killing hundreds of people. It hasn't happened yet, thank God, and hopefully it won't, but every time you are striking these matches and throwing them at this giant pool of gasoline, you are courting this kind of disaster. And when it happens, we will be able to point to the people who helped enable it happening quite pointedly because they're on television every day doing it.
John Heilman, who last time I checked wasn't able to remember or keep track of any alleged sexual harassment by his former Game Change partner, Mark Halpern. 855-40-LAURA. So now the Carolina Panthers owner is stepping aside. 81 years old. He's been the original franchise owner, right? And so he's putting the team up for sale. Some of the I've got to say, I got to pull it up. But some of the accusations against, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what happened, but I do. Some of these accusations are, what, he wanted to watch women shave their legs? Was that, or did he want his legs shaved? That doesn't even make sense. First of all, why is that something interesting to watch? That's my first reaction. Why is that? He's 81 years old. So he resigns. Danny Morrison, yeah. But he doesn't say anything about the allegations. He just said he'll be their number one fan, and he's team president since 2009. He's resigned. He came from Texas Christian University. Before that, served as commissioner of the Southern Conference, director of athletics at Wofford College. No, that's an old one. Who's the owner's name?
Jerry Richardson.
So so what's his name? The Panthers owner?
Jerry Richardson.
Okay. Every day, it's like you can't wake up. Every day you wake up and there's another man in a position of power either resigning or responding to allegations. Well, things can be worse. You could have been stuck at the Atlanta airport over the weekend. Oh, Mike. First of all, do you see all the people with their cell phones illuminated trying to rebook their flights? That was a nightmare. They closed the whole airport down for the whole day. The fact that can happen in the United States of America in and of itself is a problem. Do they know why it happened yet? Why they lost all the power? It's one of the biggest stories, grid stories of the last year.
Could you imagine if it had happened just a few days from now when everyone's leaving for Christmas?
Well, no, this was one of the biggest travel days because a lot of people are taking this week off. A lot of people are taking this week off and a couple days next week. Other people take between Christmas and New Year's off, but a lot of people are traveling on Sunday. It was a horrible day for it to happen. Any of you in that airport, oh my God, if you were in the airport or affected by it, I really want to hear from you. Travel horror stories are so entertaining. Sorry, your pain is our gain.
The reality is that this administration has complied in every single possible way with the special counsel. Taxpayers have spent millions and millions of dollars in this investigation that has not yet proven any sense of collusion with the Russians. I think the American people are ready to turn the page.
Okay, but is the president going to continue to cooperate, or is he setting the stage for firing Bob Mueller?
No, there's no way he's going to fire him. There's no conversation about that whatsoever in the White House, Chuck.
None whatsoever.
You guys keep bringing that up. We have continued to cooperate in every single possible way with that investigation.
Wolf Blitzer with Mark Short from the White House. The Oppo media have spent the last, 72 hours essentially blasting Fox News. How dare Fox News call into question any action by the FBI? Oh, you're undermining the FBI. Well, as if the Democrats have never questioned law enforcement across the United States. Isn't that the whole point of all these protests all across the country? I mean, have they really unpacked Antifa over there at CNN? Colin Kaepernick is essentially on Mount Rushmore if you're a CNN anchor. That the whole thing is about law enforcement. How law enforcement is corrupt to the core. They're all racist. But now you question the members of the team of the Mueller investigation who are political partisans or formerly worked for either Obama or Clinton, and you're fomenting violence against the FBI. I guess it's a question of whose ox is being gored here. Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us, Andy McCarthy, National Review judicial writer, former assistant U.S. attorney, and we're delighted he's with us now. Andy, great to talk to you. You have a lot to go through here, and your writings have become indispensable reading on the Mueller investigation.
Thanks so much, Laura.
And absolutely. And the first thing I want to ask you about before we get into the question of whether they were allowed to take these emails, the investigation to take control of the emails of the transition. First question I have is about the Lisa Bloom payments and offer of payments to these alleged Trump accusers before Election Day in 2016. We learned that one woman had her mortgage paid off, that appearance fees were sought by Lisa Bloom for her clients, which in and of itself might not be a big deal, but that she dangled as much as $750,000 to one woman in particular, and apparently it was going to be paid for by Trump donors, Obama, Clinton donors, or Clinton-friendly PACs. Given the facts that we know now, couldn't there be serious campaign finance law implications here?
Yeah, I think so. As a prosecutor, I'd want to look at it as to see if there's any basis for extortion charges. Probably not, but certainly the campaign finance laws, since this is effectively what these arrangements seem to be, would be something you'd examine it under. And obviously, I think, as a fact matter, people are apt to dismiss this sort of stuff when it looks like it's being wrung from people in such a heavy-handed way where there's so much financial consideration to it. But it certainly underscores the rabidness with which they're trying to get to this president.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money. I guess at one point the woman's like, I want $2 million. And they said, well, we're not going to go up there. And then they kind of kept upping their offer to her. And it looked like that wealthy donors were willing to pony this money up. Obviously not Lisa Bloom herself. That wouldn't make any sense. But if they're actually working with more than two people together to influence the outcome of the election, they had to disclose that. That's a disclosure requirement under campaign finance law. And apparently none of that was done.
No, and look, I think it really shows that they for all the people who say, the potential impeachment of Trump hinges, or when I say impeachment now, I should be clear that I mean filing articles of impeachment. I don't think they'll ever be able to remove Trump unless something, is exposed that none of us can conceive of right now. But I don't think it hinges on what Mueller finds at all. I think that the Democrats, and in particular their base, are determined to impeach this president, almost as if it's like point of honor is probably the wrong way to put it with people like this. But I think they're still so bent out of shape over Clinton being impeached and they so despise Trump that they want to hang that on him. And they're determined to do it. And if they flip the House, they're going to do it.
Well, one thing that came up, of course, on Saturday, I guess, was when the Mueller team, it was revealed, had a treasure trove of 10,000 emails that they got from the GSA, the General Services Administration, from the transition. Now, the transition, there were like top officials, maybe 13, 14 officials, emails were turned over, and they say that was improper. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, my main thought, Laura, is that, we've talked before about how extraordinarily large this prosecution team is.
Mm-hmm.
To me, inexplicably large, like 5 times larger than anything I ever worked on, and I worked on some pretty important stuff. But they said that they needed these resources so that, like, when the complexities of investigating a presidential campaign, foreign intrigue, when all that stuff came up, they'd have resources to throw at it. And it seems to me that far from going through these complicated situations with, the due professional care, they're like a bull in a china shop. So, with Manafort, when they could pick up the phone and call the lawyer and say, we'd like these documents, instead they do a pre-dawn raid at gunpoint. And here, where the normal, professional, honorable thing would be, you pick up the phone and call the transitions lawyers, or you pick up the phone and call Trump's lawyers and say, we want to look at the transition documents. And then they get to say, okay, well, there's some stuff you're entitled to, but there's some stuff we want to claim privilege about. And then you go to court and you hash that out. Instead, what they did was they went to a third party and, whatever imbeciles they got there, just gave them everything. And there was no consideration whatsoever either on their end, at GSA, or apparently on Mueller's end, that if you're going to take a big tranche of documents like this, you have to have a taint team, and they have to go through it to make sure that you're not violating attorney-client privilege and any other privilege. I mean, that's the careful way you go about this stuff. And if they're not doing that, what I'd like to know is, why do they need 17 lawyers? What are they doing over there?
Are you surprised that there hasn't been more out of this investigation, given the quote dream team that we heard of? This team is like F. Lee Bailey, Brendan Sullivan. It's like the most incredible team ever. You surprised there's not more?
Well, I mean, if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. They could have the greatest lawyers on planet Earth. If they don't have a crime, they don't have a crime. And, I've always thought that they called this thing collusion because that sounds like a dark term, but It's not a crime. Collusion is just, it's concerted activity. They need conspiracy. And I think if they had a conspiracy, we'd have heard about it by now. And no matter the atmospherics, when you look at what they've done so far and the three sets of charges that they've put out, the stuff on Manafort is clearly designed to squeeze him to see if he has anything, but so far they haven't gotten anything from him. And then you have Flynn and Papadopoulos, where collusion, as it were, pours off every page of what they describe. They're having meetings with Russia. Maybe we'll get Trump together with Putin. We're talking about, policy with Russia, et cetera. And then they ultimately plead them to what? To lying to the FBI, a process crime in the investigation. And that's because collusion is not a crime, So they can have, F. Lee Bailey times 17. But if there's nothing there, there's nothing there.
We're talking to Andy McCarthy of National Review. His latest piece was the Steele dossier used to obtain a FISA warrant against Trump's campaign, which we posted on lauraingraham.com. Andy, if I were a betting person, and when I bet I usually don't win, so I don't bet, but if I were, I'd still go ahead and bet the answer to that question is yes. just because of the Bruce Orr connection, and everybody remembers he was also, hovering around in the FBI. His wife worked for Fusion GPS, and then we had the meeting with Christopher Steele's guy, what's his name, Williams, and it's just, if they didn't use it, you almost wonder why didn't they use it at this point, because it looks so bad.
Yeah, well, here's the one question. If I could ask one question of these guys and then make a bet on account of it, here's what I would home in on. Because we know that they got a FISA warrant for Carter Page. And because Page is an American citizen, it's not enough under FISA law to merely show that he was acting as an agent of a foreign power, in this case, Russia. Now, I'm not saying that he was. I'm just saying this is what the allegation was, right? You have to also show that his activities either were in violation or could be in violation of American criminal statutes. Now, the only stuff, I've looked at a lot of stuff on Page, and I am the first to admit that the FBI knows a lot more than I do, but the only stuff I've ever seen on Carter Page that was arguably criminal is what's in the dossier. So if they represented to the FISA court both that this guy was acting as an agent of a foreign power and that his activities might be violations of federal criminal statutes, I don't see how they didn't use the dossier.
Is it unusual for the FBI to have paid money for something like this, if they did?
It's not unusual to pay money for information. I mean, you have to ultimately disclose it. It would be highly irregular, to my mind, if they paid money knowing that Steele was somehow getting paid by the Clinton campaign. So that's another circle we have to close. I don't know what the FBI knew when they were dealing with Steele. I don't even know what Steele knew about what Steele was getting, who was paying Steele.
Do you think the House, was it the House Judiciary Committee or House Intel Committee, excuse me?
The Intel Committee.
Intel Committee would be wise to be interviewing Lisa Page or Peter Strzok? Aren't these people going to be interviewed at some point?
Yeah, I think they're, in fact, where we're at now, as I understand it, is whether people start to get held in contempt for withholding these witnesses and withholding other information. So, yes, absolutely. I think they have to be interviewed.
If you had to rate Jeff Sessions from a scale of 1 to 10, and his role as, the Attorney General of the United States, just as it goes on these kinds of issues, how would you rate his performance?
Well, I give him a 1 on how he's performed in connection with the Russia stuff, which is a disappointment to me because I give him close to 10 on everything else that he's doing as Attorney General. I think across the board he's doing some really fabulous work, but I think on this one, which turns out to be so important not only to the president but to people's overall impression of the administration, I think his recusal on Russia was way too broad, and as a result, it's called into question. At least it evidently called into question in his mind how much he could participate in a lot of stuff that's gone on that shouldn't have gone on, including giving Mueller a warrant to investigate this thing that has absolutely no limits and that has become just the fishing expedition that people like me complained it was going to be at the beginning.
You complained from you sent up the red flare right away, and I said, I'm sorry, but you should never recuse yourself. It just because now people say, "Can you fire Andrew McCabe?" Well, he'll probably say, "I can't fire Andrew McCabe because it has something to do with the Russia," which is ridiculous. He's the Attorney General of the United States. He should be able to fire the Deputy Director of the FBI. So, but now he's kind of, it's a hot potato. I can't touch anything. It's preposterous. Andy, loved your column. Hope you come back on the Angle soon. Great to talk to you. If we don't, have a Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you in the new year.
You too, Laura. Thanks.
All right. We'll take a break. We'll close out this hour. We have a lot on tap. Oh, boy, this is a good show. And our friends in California, Santa Barbara, that fire is so bad. Our prayers are out to you, your family, your property, the animals, the wildlife, all of it. We're praying for you. I think we're going to be learning more and more about the ill-advised way Bob Mueller decided to grab those emails and not filter through them. I wonder why. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. A lot on tap tonight on the Ingraham Angle. Tune in 10 p.m. Eastern.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Bill Sanders. Yeah. Bill Sanders, baby.
First and foremost, you deny any wrongdoing, correct?
Absolutely. I have never groped. I have never coerced. I have never exposed myself inappropriately to anyone. In 30 years, over 6 different networks, and there's never been any allegation of that. I celebrate and applaud these women who have the courage to come out and to tell their truth and lead us in a conversation about how to create healthy workspaces. At the same time, I want to make sure that we don't lose all sense of nuance and proportionality in this conversation, because if we do, then people end up being guilty simply by accusation.
Tavis Smiley is going to go on with Tucker Carlson tonight on Fox News. Darn, I wanted to nab him first, but as long as one of my guys or gals at Fox is, can you even say anything anymore? Can I say guys or gals at Fox? Is getting the interview. That's fine by me. More the merrier. Spread it around. But Tavis Smiley I've known for many years, and I got to say, I believe him. I believe what he's saying. Now, he doesn't like President Trump. He's a liberal. So is Al Franken. I'm standing up for him. And I'm not saying that all the women are lying. I don't know. I don't like people being run out of their jobs on mere allegations alone. I find it to be abhorrent. And it is, you bet, I hate the word weaponizing. I'm so sick of the word weaponize. But it is weaponizing relationships, employment relationships. And I say this to women and men. Something happens, report it at the time. Report it at the time, make a contemporaneous record. And then it's much easier to go back and say, okay, what happened? Is there veracity to this or not? But when it's years later, there is very little ability to do that. And when it's a consensual relationship gone bad, then it's just out the window almost altogether. Now, Tavis Smiley, and we'll play this in a moment, but wait a second, James. I heard him say, I've never groped. I couldn't hear. What was that second thing he said?
I have never groped. I have never coerced.
I've never groped, I've never caressed. Play it one more time.
I have never groped, I have never coerced.
Coerced? Coerced. Well, he's also never pronounced the word coerced. Is that a hard word to say? No wonder he's not coming on my show. I'm picking on him for... Well, he was speaking quickly. He is a fast talker. Fast talkers are difficult to understand at times. That's all there is. But do you agree that this will segregate more workforces in the United States? And if you're a man, will you be less likely to hire or work with women because of your self-preservation? You're just worried. That's a horrible thing to even contemplate. But I really think men, even men who would never do anything, not even say anything, I think they're afraid. Because then what happens when you fire a woman? Now, a woman who may be disgruntled for a whole variety of reasons in her life, or a man, it could happen with men or women, they're like, okay, well, I'm going to make his or her life miserable. That could happen. And frankly, it has happened. So before we rush to lionize the Me Too movement as like they're the latter-day Rosa Parks, I would start thinking about the ramifications of all of this and the lives that will be destroyed without so much as a hearing. Reputations, lives, etc. 855-40-LAURA. Have you ever had a consensual relationship in the workplace? And some of you might have married your bosses. And did it pose a problem at any given time for you, or did it work out fine? Other employees probably get jealous. You know, I've known a lot of people who married their bosses over the years. I think most of them are still married. I think, yeah, most of them are still married. And other colleagues met. When you're in your 20s in Washington, that's who you date. I dated a bunch of people I worked with. They're some of my best friends today. But you're working together. It's like that's what happens. Law clerks at the Supreme Court end up getting married. They're working close together, and you're in your 20s. You're single. Are we not allowed to do that now? I guess not. Tavis Smiley continued.
You admit to having consensual sexual relationships with your subordinates. Do you understand how that could be viewed as an abuse of power?
Well, absolutely. I certainly understand people who have a viewpoint that any consensual relationship in the workplace is wrong. But there are also other points of view on this. In our employee handbook, while we do not encourage office relationships, we don't forbid them either. And we don't forbid them, Paula, because I don't know where your heart's going to lead you. I don't know who you're going to hang out with or date or fall in love with. And indeed, there are millions of Americans watching this program right now who met their spouses at work.
Well, that's true. The next question is, did you love all those women? When you say fall in love, is that what it was? No, I'm just teasing. Was that what it's all about? Trump's big speech this afternoon. He's going out with a bang. I'm telling you, he's ending this year. It's like, you get the sense that Trump's trying to do as much as possible before the end of the year. It's like, let's do this. As long as you don't do DACA amnesty, as long as you don't do that. You do that, you're going to have a problem with yours truly. We got a lot of people on the line. We'll get to all your calls. A great piece by Roger Simon, which we'll post on our Facebook page. The FBI's Ship of Fools. Oh my gosh, it's hilarious. So good. I love Roger Simon. Out there in Hollywood, one of the few conservatives out there in La La Land. It's awesome. Love it. The FBI scandal, hiding in plain sight, is my point of contention with Eli Lake. We'll put that out there in case you want to read what we were going to fight about, but we ended up not fighting about because his position on China and Russia is so interesting. I had to pick his brain on that. Oh, speaking of disgruntled employees, we have a former disgruntled employee of Fox News that I literally, if she ran into me on the street, I wouldn't know who she was. I asked Taylor, I said, who the heck is this? I haven't even heard of her. Someone named Tamara Holder. So she runs over to CNN to call Rupert Murdoch a liar or delusional. Says lives have been destroyed. Former Fox News contributor received a financial settlement with the company after disclosing sexual misconduct. Broke her silence today, so she broke her confidentiality agreement. Oh, I'll tell you something. Fox News will go after you. You do that. She's bawling on TV, crying. Says that Rupert Murdoch is a liar or he's delusional and old and needs to get out. Holder's comments. She's not related to Eric Holder, right?
Fox News ruined people's lives. He ruined my life. I don't have a job in TV anymore because the place that he has secured down like Fort Knox allowed abusive predators to prey on women who just wanted to work. That is not nonsense. This is people's lives.
I don't know the allegations that she raised, but was she even? Well, how many times was she even in the Fox building? I've honestly, I think I've never met this woman. I don't know what happened to her, and if something happened to her, I'm really sorry about it, but I've never heard of her. Maybe I hope she wasn't on like the O'Reilly Factor when I hosted. If so, it must not have been a memorable appearance because I can't remember her. For the life of me, I don't even know who she is. But this has been a nonstop hit job on Fox News over the last 72 hours on TV. You know why? They don't like the fact that you get information other than CNN and MSNBC. If they could shut down Fox tomorrow, they would. And if Hillary were in power, I figure she'd probably do something with the FCC to go after both talk radio and Fox News. They tried to run Sean Hannity off the air. Now, Bill O'Reilly says he's going to have some information coming out that will apparently shed some light on all this. I don't know when that's coming or if it's coming, but that's what he said. I remember they were trying to allege something about some woman in Alaska. Well, first of all, I've known Sean Hannity for 20 years. Bull. Okay? Bull. And I want, you know what I want? I want all these people to take lie detector tests. All of them. Take a lie detector test. Were you playing along to get a promotion? Were you playing along? At any point in time, were you playing along? I just want a lie detector test. Maybe that's what it has to come to. Well, everybody will be slapped on a lie detector test. Maybe we'll have portable polygraphs. Will that be maybe we can sell that for last minute Christmas rush, a portable polygraph test. Anytime you go to a new job, bring your polygraph with you. Let's go to Janet in Nevada. Janet.
Hi, Laura. Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. And I just wanted to comment on this Me Too movement and all these people being accused, careers being destroyed with no evidence, no due process, no nothing. You know, if women keep this up, this is going to backfire on women, and it's really a shame. And it already, here in Nevada, we have a friend, and he has already told me that the boss of his company has already stated he is not going to be hiring any more women. No more women are going to be hired. And I think we're going to see more and more of this if this kind of stuff is allowed to persist and continue, because men are not going to be
they're not going to be sitting ducks. Men are not going to willingly put themselves in the target zone because they decide they're not going to give a good performance review to a female employee, and then like, okay, well, unless I give her not only a raise but an additional contract, then I'm going to be sued. You can't put yourself in that position. You just can't do it. By the way, the woman Andrea Ramsey, a Democratic candidate for Congress, dropped out of the race in Kansas City after accusations in a 2005 lawsuit where a male subordinate said he had rejected her advances. Now, let me just tell you how this went down. The company for which she worked, she was the boss, entered into a mediation with her, and there was a settlement, and it was done. And I will tell you that mediation does not mean guilt. You know what mediation means? We don't want to go to trial because the twisted judicial system we have, where plaintiffs can take people and drag them through the mud, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it turns out it's a spurious claim in the end, but you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm telling you, we should go to the British system. Anyone who files a plaintiff's action, if you lose, you should have to pay the other side's legal fees. I find this whole system to be perverted. It's perverse. And I don't like it. I don't like the fact that these people can sue, drag you into a mediation, then you have to just settle because, oh my gosh, I don't want to be out years of my life and hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal bills. But you know what I say to people? Time to fight. You got to fight back. Oh, yeah. People try to drag you into court. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Preserve all your emails, my friend. Get ready for the depositions. We're going to find out what really happened. Okay, we're not doing mediation. But the problem is when you're working for a company, they have kind of a vested interest in sweeping it all under the rug. So the companies build this into the cost of doing business. How sick and twisted is that? The plaintiff's bar in the United States of America is a toxic force in this country. They troll for lawsuits and they drive small businesses out of business. And people crumble because they know what litigation costs. So it's unusual, but if you have someone who has the money to fight, you know what I say? Fight it. Do not cave. Don't be afraid. Don't cave. And I'm telling you something, that's my view. Don't cave. You fight on. And then you see where people's real courage is. 855-40-LAURA. All right, we'll take a break. Get to all your calls. Again, the Fox News former employee says people's lives were destroyed. Was that Gretchen Carlson? She got $23 million. How much? She looked pretty good on CNN. Doesn't look too destroyed to me. Megyn Kelly, that inappropriate hug she complained about. She's over there on NBC making $23 million a year. Yeah, destroyed? I'm sorry, but maybe there's one or two people who really, but the kind of prominent people know, cashed it in. Don't go away.
Got a black magic woman. Got a black magic woman.
I gave up my law practice to go to Fox News in New York to work for Fox News as a Democrat to be a sports commentator, a legal commentator, all of those things. I wasn't planted by Hillary Clinton or Nancy Pelosi. None of us were. We just wanted to work. And when we came out and spoke out, this had nothing to do with politics. This had to do with something that Mr. Murdoch knows every day, and that's called rights.
Didn't she get paid off? She got money, I guess, right? So the problem is when you agree to a settlement, you have non-disclosure. So she's just incriminated herself in a civil proceeding, which maybe that's her goal. Maybe she wants to blow it all up. I have no idea. 855-40 Laura. We got the attacks on Fox. Do you agree that this is, without a doubt, a concerted effort by the left to take out one of the few media outlets that has brought to you the truth about the Mueller investigation? They're banking everything on Mueller. So the one media organization that's actually discussing Strzok and Jeannie Rhee and Andrew Weissman and Bruce Orr and going into great detail about it. I mean, I've done our own investigation night after night after night. I've brought you the truth about what's happening there. But they can't. I mean, the old line. They can't handle the truth. They want to think everything about Trump is bad. Now, I don't think everything that Trump does is right. I think, more often than not, he's gotten it right. But we've talked about what happened with the putting Jeff Sessions at Justice Department. He should have gone to DHS. We've talked about that judge who was nominated. We've talked about too many Jones Day people getting nominations to federal district court judgeships. We've talked about the crowd size crowing early on. That was the way they rolled out the travel ban. Like, we actually can critically look at what Trump does and say, good, 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 not so good. Needs to work on minority outreach, needs to stop reacting to every criticism. They have no ability for a moment to think Bob Mueller could have really screwed this up. Not for a moment. They can't even let that thought go into their heads. Now, I think that is ridiculous, just with the facts that we know right now. Let's go to Robert in Florida, line 1. Robert.
Hey, Laura, I was calling because this Me Too movement has kind of gone too far. I mean, all these victims should be taken critically and trusted, but I mean, when you have a state congressman in Kentucky who takes his own life because he's accused of something and has no way of proving it, the court of public opinion can convict somebody before the court of law.
He posted a final message to his friends and family Wednesday afternoon on Facebook, Dan Johnson. In it, he denied the accusations that had tormented him and his family for the past 48 hours, that he, a Kentucky state rep and a self-proclaimed pope of his Louisville church, had gotten drunk and molested a 17-year-old girl during a sleepover many years ago. God knows the truth, and nothing is the way that they make it out to be. But heaven is my home. He killed himself. Could this be a type of bullying that ends up driving people who are already depressed or to the edge?
Hi, this is Ben Domenech, the host of the Federalist Radio Hour. We're a daily show coming to you 5 days a week from Washington, D.C., where we interview our nation's top journalists, politicians, authors, chefs, economists, entertainers, and more. If you're looking for a contrarian discussion on news, politics, or culture, give us a listen and subscribe at podcastone.com, the new Podcast One app, or at Apple Podcasts.
They told me, ba-rum-pa-pum-pum, a newborn king to see, ba-rum-pa-pum-pum.
I'm Bing. Oh, I'm pleased to meet you. You're the one that sings, right?
Well, right or wrong, I sing either way.
Oh, well, I sing too.
Oh, good. What kind of singing?
Well, mostly the contemporary stuff. Do you like modern music?
Oh, I think it's marvelous. Some of it really fine. But tell me, you ever listen to any of the older fellas?
Oh, yeah, sure. I like John Lennon and the other one with Harry Nilsson.
Ooh, you go back that far, huh?
Oh, yeah, I'm not as young as I look.
None of us is these days.
They told me,
Now, if you don't know know where that's from, then you don't know the greatest Christmas movies ever. Of course, White Christmas. Lee Habib, who is the host of Our American Stories on Our American Network. He writes phenomenal pieces for LifeZet. And we have Bing Crosby and David Bowie. That's what it's from, excuse me. The David Bowie and Bing Crosby duet. I'm thinking it's White Christmas, the movie. Where am I? I need to get more sleep. Lee, the problem is you were over at my house late last night, and I didn't get the proper sleep. How are you?
You didn't. You're mixing up your movies, but I do it all the time, and we all do. So good to talk. Good to talk to you again.
Well, you wrote about this duet between Bing Crosby and David Bowie. You've written about the Charlie Brown Christmas special and why that probably couldn't be made today. And you tell stories about some of the iconic cultural moments and the figures that we either know or should know. But why did you decide to write about this particular song?
Well, a few things. First, it was just a really amusing story, and I'd heard a friend tell it to me, and then I started doing the research. And the story sort of goes like this, Laura. Bing Crosby's in London. He's going to be doing a Merry Old Christmas special. And back then, Bing did one every year. He knocked it out. But he was worried about his relevance with younger viewers. So they said, why don't we bring in Twiggy? She was a big star then. Why don't we bring in this guy, David Bowie? And then we'll attract the younger folks. Now, Crosby wasn't inclined to bring Bowie on, but his kids wanted him to bring Bowie on. Bowie wasn't inclined to do the Bing Crosby gig either, because that's so square, but his mom loved Bing Crosby. So this was an intergenerational story in which, my goodness, who would have ever thought that the glam rocker, androgynous guy with red hair, earrings, and lipstick would sit down with a great classic crooner from the 1940s and record a masterpiece together. And it's actually what they did. And the story of how it happened, Laura, and how it almost didn't happen is pretty remarkable. So that's why I sort of picked it up and wrote about it.
So this was in what year? 1970? Let me guess. 1971?
1977.
Okay,
the recording date was actually September 11th, 1977. That was the production meeting and the time that Bowie had on his calendar, just a few hours. Bowie walks through the door with red hair, lipstick, full-length mink coat, and a woman. Well, the woman looked a little like a man, and Bowie was the man who looked a little like a woman, and everybody was like, oh, this isn't going to work. This is going to be a disaster. But Bowie played along. He respected the space that Bing had, but there was one thing he didn't want to do. He didn't want to sing Little Drummer Boy. He hated the song. So the songwriters had to improvise and write the Peace on Earth. And then Peace on Earth was going to be sung simultaneously with the Little Drummer Boy. And Bing and Bowie sat down together, skeptical of each other, not really wanting to be there. But the daughter and son of Bing Crosby said, and they were on the set, these kids, and they never forgot it, is they said they watched the two sing, and it became so clear. Bowie was watching Bing sing, and he said, that guy's a great musician. And Bing was listening to Bowie sing, the tempo, the timing, the harmony. And they nailed it in 2 takes. In under an hour, the song was written and recorded. And it was dazzling.
Let's listen in.
Our finest day of glory. Say the day living peace away. So peace on earth.
Well, the thing that I love about it is that it combines at the time, of course, a massive smash superstar with a classical performer, and their voices, not all of them could pull it off, but their voices sounded great together. Who produced this record?
It was just the local production team. They weren't record producers. It was just the TV show. This is the irony. Mm-hmm. It was recorded for the TV show. RCA ended up releasing this on a flip side of the David Bowie single. That became the single, and it became David Bowie's second biggest selling single. of all time.
Okay, we're having a terrible, Lee. We're having a terrible squelch on the line. We should have checked that before, but we're going to reconnect with you so we make it sound better because we're having a terrible squelch. So reconnect with Lee. I've got to say that is one of the songs that kind of it's haunting. It's so good. It has almost a haunting feel about it. And I think, what are the songs at Christmas that really affect you the most? Mine is Silent Night. I've said this many times. The other is probably Drummer Boy. That's probably the other one that really, I don't know. You can visualize it. It's such a visual song that you can just, more than any Away in the Manger, Hark the Herald. Those are fun. Oh, Come All You Faithful. Angels We Have Heard on High. Those are great. Do You Hear What I Hear? I love those songs. But what song makes you tear up at Christmas? Blue Christmas? Well, sometimes that's sad. But this is Little Drummer Boy, this particular version, this duet from the old television show, and then Silent Night, pretty much sung by anybody, if it's sung well. Especially of a boys' choir, like Vienna Boys Choir singing Silent Night, forget about it. I can't make it through that song. I can't even sing it. I start weeping. Lee, we're talking about songs that end up making us tear up at Christmas, and I always say it's Silent Night. Probably the Little Drummer Boy would be the second song that makes me tear up, because I don't know, you can picture it like someone who has nothing to give, and they give whatever it is they can. And that's what Christmas, we're supposed to be called to do. The birth of Christ is supposed to help us, give more to people and organizations like Food for the Poor that do great work. And it's that image of the little boy in the dark coming up and playing a drum. And I don't know, there's just something so beautiful about it.
No doubt. And Laura, interestingly enough, Bing Crosby records that song on September 11th, 1977. 1 month later, a month before the show is to air around Christmas, he's playing golf, and he says, I'm not feeling well. He has a massive heart attack, and he dies. So then the question is what to do. Well, his wife says, we got to put this show out. Bing would have wanted it that way. Catherine Crosby comes out and announces to the world the circumstances of her husband's death. People wanted to know what happened. Has this little introduction to the Bing Crosby Merry Christmas Hour, and there it is, very first skit. David and Bing. And that sort of makes me weep, but it's also a beautiful thing that the last work Bing Crosby did in his life was with David Bowie.
Do you have a song that makes you tear up at Christmas? Remember?
Silent Night.
Silent Night. It's just, well,
it kills me.
Yeah. No, it's something about that. It's one, I think it's got to be one of the most beautiful songs ever written, period. There's something about that song.
It's so simple, Laura. It's what you said. It's so evocative. You feel like you're there in the space, and that's the closest I feel as a Christian to the birth of Christ. And that's really, songs that bring me to there are more important than songs to bring me to the merriment of the packages and the more secular parts of the tradition. It's the sacred that I think is what moves us about that song.
And you might know this, or others probably know this, but it was composed in the early 1800s, 1818. Franz Gruber, and the lyrics were written by Joseph Moore, and it was written in Salzburg, Austria, and it was declared an intangible cultural heritage by UNESCO in 2011. And it's been one of the most covered songs of all time, and the best-selling single of all time. Third best-selling single of all time was the duet Bing Crosby sang with Bowie of all time. I mean, that is just wild. And of course, Crosby, as you said, dies just shortly after. And now, Lee, we were talking about this last night at my house with Chris, but all these great performers from the 70s and 80s are now gone. Obviously David Bowie's gone. So many people have died in just the last couple of years. But Prince, Glenn Frey from the Eagles, Tom Petty, of course, just died.
Merle
Haggard. Yep, Merle Haggard. We've lost so many. Glenn Campbell. I mean, the Bakersfield Sound. I mean, we're just losing Now, Dwight Yoakam's the only one left who does Bakersfield Sound, along with maybe a few other youngsters who are trying to keep it alive.
Yeah, and I think there are a few, but for the most part, as we've talked about so often, the record labels, a lot of these artists hated the labels. And then one day there were no labels, and now they wish there were. The record labels brought along artistic development, A&R guys. They brought artists along, gave them a home, distributed their music. And now it's everybody trying to write a single, a pop single, and one and done. And it's very hard to be an artist these days. I believe the artists are there, Laura, but there's not an industry to support them and make a living. My sister writes music for a living, and she now laments the good old bad old days when those evil record corporations, but remember all the artists would always rip these corporations, and now they can't make a living. And, corporations serve a function. They create commerce and commercial activity for artists. And these artists have come to know that that business of the music business is needed more than ever to help them develop their talents and develop an audience.
No, I mean, I'd say it's depressing, but it is depressing. I'm sorry. I'm not an old fogey. We love Chris Stapleton. We love some of the younger Tyler Childers, and some of these younger guys have come along who are phenomenal talents. I mean, they're just unreal, incredible. But you're right. There's not a space that really supports them to the extent they need support, and that's just the way of the internet now. And there's probably no turning back, but you never know. We could be surprised by things as well.
I think we're going to be surprised by them, Laura. I will predict in the next few years you're going to see people aggregate labels again and do this business, because look, David Geffen did it in the 70s. Until David Geffen came around, there was no such thing as a singer-songwriter. It didn't exist. You sang or you wrote songs. If you were James Taylor, good luck. No chance.
And by the way,
you wrote songs and you gave them.
By the way, Keely Smith just died. I'm remiss in not saying this for the whole show. What a voice. One of the great jazz singers of all time, and just a phenomenal talent. We're going to miss her. She's 89 years old, still performing late into her years. Lee Habib from Our American Stories Network, Our American Network, and Our American Stories. Phenomenal show. We really appreciate it. Merry Christmas, Lee. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. Stay with us.
They told me, oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining.
Okay, a dear friend just said this is the song that makes him tear up, Oh Holy Night, which you don't hear that much anymore, but Andy Williams, without a doubt, nails it. Nails this song. Oh my gosh, 1963 recorded. So beautiful. Well, one of our interns, one of our little chickadees is flying the nest. It's so sad. Janae is leaving us to go back home. You're going back to Bakersfield, California, right, Janae?
Yes, I am.
Oh, did you learn anything for this whole time you were here? Did you have fun?
Yes, I did. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. Never, you can't match this experience.
Never a dull moment on the Laura Ingraham Show.
Never.
But any job you have after this will seem, oh my gosh. I mean, I could do that.
I know. It's a
I work for the Laura Ingraham Show.
Exactly.
No problem whatsoever. Janae is Janae is so talented, and she's such a great intern. We're like messaging her. She's in the hospital. She had some deal with diabetes, and she's in the hospital. She's like, "Oh, I'm fine." I call her. I said, "Janae, how you doing?" "Oh, no, I'm fine." "Yeah, they're getting through this." I'm like, "Why did you tell us? You're in the hospital." "Well, it's not a big. It happens sometimes." I'm like, "What?" Like you're very like, no problem, low key, and we love that in interns. But we really appreciate everything you did for us. And will you keep in touch with us? And
thank you. Yes, of course I will. I'll definitely say hi to everyone if I'm back in D.C. and
will you
stop by.
Keep your eye out for the political correctness run amok and wherever you see it?
Oh, definitely. We have a lot of barricades to get over still.
Oh, my gosh. Well, anyone messes with you, once you're part of the Laura Ingraham family, anyone messes with you, it's like, that doesn't sound very good when I say it that way, but it just means we're here for you anytime, day and night. Let's go to Chris in Nebraska, line 5. Chris, real quick.
Merry Christmas. Yes, one of my favorite songs is by Faith Hill. It's A Baby Changes Everything. You need to listen to it. It's beautiful.
Let's listen.
A baby changes everything. Man she loves, she's never touched.
Chris?
Yes.
I adore you. I'm not a big fan of this song. It took me about 7 seconds. It's a little too precious. I am sorry, but isn't that, I like the sentiment. I don't like the instrumentation. Janae, good luck to you.
And she
Thanks for listening to the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Podcast One has new shows on our new app. Check out all the cool features to help you explore our exciting new programming, like America's Lakers podcast with Jay Moore, Sessions with Randy Jackson, So Random with Corinne Olympios, Attack Each Day, The Harbaugh's podcast, Not Just Sports with Susie Schuster and Rich Eisen, and Sound of Success, The Dick Enberg podcast, as well as your old favorites like The Lady Gang, Steve Austin, Shaquille O'Neal, and Adam Carolla. Get the new Podcast One app in the App Store, Google Play, or podcastone.com.